I love this theme, the sort of like sideshow theme. More cybersecurity conferences should have Dagwood dogs available to buy in the car park. That would definitely get me interested. And it does suit my inner cyber carnival barker that I am deep down. So, yeah. Hey, thank you very much for coming along to my talk. Thank you very much, CrikeyCon, for having me. It's great to be back at CrikeyCon. It's great to be back in Brisbane. It's great to be back in Meanjin, the traditional lands of the Yagara people, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So this is a fairly provocatively titled How to Hack a Hospital talk, which has made at least one state health department unhappy with the nature of it, for reasons that will become immediately apparently obvious. The reason this talk came about is there are a lot of talk. I used to go to a lot of cybersecurity conferences, and they used to have a lot of talks about hospital infosec and why it was terrible and things we need to do about it. And they're all things like systemic change and government funding, and none of them about MRIs are hard to patch. So I never sort of really got to meet anyone else that was doing sort of IT and cyber at the coalface of a hospital. So they're a little bit weird, hospitals. They're a bit strange. So I thought I may as well go and bang on about them at length. So we've got a bit of a brief presentation on how health sectors work, how the technology works, why hospitals get attacked, the challenges in defending them, and hopefully a bit of a hopeful message for the future once we get through it all. A little bit about me, sporting last year's CrikeyCon mask. I think it was last year. Time gets all weird over the last couple of years somehow. 20 odd years in IT, 10 in health, 5-ish in cyber. I'm based out of Melbourne, so most of the time you can find me complaining about coffee and doing hook turns. Hospitals being targeted by crime isn't a new thing. Ever since we've had Medicare fraud. That basically came like as a bundle package. So cyber crime isn't the first time we've had crime in hospitals, but like most things cyber, it's greatly increased the efficiency of it. The rise of ID theft has really contributed to this. Initially, people want to commit credit card fraud, you go and steal some credit cards, and it's real easy to do. Then banks and credit card providers started getting wise, and they got really, really good at securing their stuff. Hospitals, however, not so. People worked out that instead of stealing the credit card, you just steal all the bits of data necessary to go and enrol in or sign up for a credit card with a financial provider. And to sign up, you generally need things like name, address, date of birth, driver's license, Medicare number, all the sorts of things that are held within your medical record. The attackers weren't necessarily after your clinical data, they were after your demographic data. And so there are a few high-profile incidents happened. Probably one of the bigger ones was Red Cross with their Donate Blood service. Had some developers in, it's always the developers, who left a bucket open on their dev instance that had the details of a few million Australians. The particularly scary one about this one is it had, beyond just the usual name, address, date of birth, driver's license, Medicare, HIV status, history of at-risk sexual partners. Fairly unpleasant. It's not unique to Australia, it's happened to other nations as well. Singapore in 2016 had its medical records attacked and stolen, all 1.5 million of them, mostly by the threat actor, whoever that could have been, wanting to find out about the status of their Prime Minister, Lee Hsien-loong. So these things kept happening, and it sort of fed into this narrative that hospitals don't really care. The thing is, hospitals care, but they care about slightly different things. So here's what hospitals care about. Hospitals care about, did anyone die today that wasn't meant to? Every year, a non-zero amount of people go to hospital and die when they shouldn't. And does patient care get impacted by an event? So someone going to hospital and dying needlessly is what's known as a sentinel event. There are a number of sentinel events, 10 to be exact, there they are. So we're talking things like giving the baby back to the wrong parent, or you go in to have someone's foot amputated, you go, you're right or am I right? Oh, it doesn't matter, whoops, oh. Leaving a scalpel inside someone's colon when you stitch them back up, not good, sentinel events. This is what hospitals care about. This is actual harm that we're trying to avoid. So the real driver for technology in modern hospitals is to prevent all of these things. This is why hospitals are getting more and more high-tech, to try and reduce the incidence of these things happening. So record theft, like people having your medical record stolen, doesn't meet the criteria. So you go and talk to a clinician, they go, oh, how many people died? You go, well, none. Yeah, right. Was patient care impacted? They go, no. Like, call me when it does. Turns out I didn't need to call them. They called me on the morning of... Man, I should invest in a better mouse. There we go. On the morning of May 10, 2017, woke up, put the kettle on, had the house to myself, current mood, yeah, I'm going to do absolutely nothing today, this is going to be sick. Put the kettle on, popped the newspaper open, and found that The Age had reported that there was a massive cyber attack going on amongst hospitals over in the UK. Now, when cybersecurity reaches the mainstream news, one of two things has happened. There's either a journalist who is so far out of their depth they need scuba equipment, or something very bad is happening indeed. So I thought I'll pop over to a bit more of a trusted nerd source and went, oh, they're reporting it too. Oh dear, 74 countries. Hospitals going offline. Ambulances being diverted. You know how you look at your phone and you know it's about to ring and it's about to be your boss? Yeah.
My disappointment is immeasurable. And my day is ruined.
Yeah, weekend ruined for me. Yes, although the pity party didn't last particularly long because it was a hell of a lot worse over there. So the NHS had some serious impact. WannaCry, everyone's sort of been through WannaCry and like the number of systems and the amount of services affected. But health looks at it through the health lens. How is healthcare affected? Impacts to patient safety. So the impact was at 4 p.m. on the 12th of May, a major incident was declared, which sort of unlocks emergency processes in hospitals. 1 in every 3 NHS properties was affected, either by being infected directly by WannaCry or because they sort of cut their internet or their comms connectivity to prevent being hit themselves and fell back to paper. 595 out of the 603 primary care clinics were affected, so GPs essentially. So you picture your GP not being able to operate. About 19,000 appointments cancelled. That's a best guess because some people don't rebook. Not all appointments are followed up. And the big one was that 5 accident and emergency departments were no longer accepting ambulances. So provision of emergency healthcare is one of the key critical components that your hospital can do. When that stops working and your hospital stops functioning, it is heartbreaking. So how was the day over there?
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Gets me every time, he's so sad. So yes, hospitals are and remain targets. So WannaCry was the first of a new breed of attacks that hospitals were being hit with. In September 2019, Barwon Health and the Southwest Regional Health Alliance in Victoria, basically the bottom left-hand quarter of the state of Victoria, got hit by a cyber attack. Did not get full services restored until January the next year. Eastern Health in March of 2021, which is sort of the biggest population growth area in Melbourne, taken down, which is just what you want when you're in the middle of a pandemic. It's fantastic. Brilliant timing. I mean, there's never a great time to have your hospital ransomware. Pandemics even less so. These gentlemen currently doing tech support, this is the Irish Army. So this happened when we were all flying home from OnCert last year in May. The Health Service Executive in Ireland, so the governing body that controls all of Irish healthcare, got hit with a massive cyber attack to the extent that they called in the army. What's wrong with this picture? They are restoring Windows 7, thank you. You get a prize, by the way. Here we go, it's going to get a prize. I'm trying to die. Yes, I'm old. Where are we? Oh, man. Yes, if you pass it along, because, oh, no, No, I'll come do it myself. Crowd surf me. There we go. Cheers. You get a sticker. The sticker is of the shirt that I am wearing, kindly donated to me by my friend and colleague over here. So you're a blue teamer or a red teamer? Good answer, blue teamer. That's what we like to hear. Blue team is best team, after all. It is. Where was I? I do go off on a tangent. Yes. So yeah, they're restoring Windows 7, which if you find yourself in a hospital that's been hacked, don't restore your old broken stuff that got you hacked in the first place. There was an incident where previously that I worked on that they wanted to restore all the domain controllers to the state they were in originally, one of which was 2003. We had to have a discussion. NHS again, not having a great time. So this happened 3 weeks ago. One of their MSPs that provide a lot of services to them around patient records got hit by ransomware. So they lost access to patient records and 111, which is their nurse on call service. So not taking out 999, but the next one down. This one happened last week. So small town just outside of Paris. I say small town, 600,000 people. Again, ambulances no longer being accepted, being diverted to nearby towns. We're at the stage that ransomware is starting to have a serious impact on our society at large. Hospitals occupy unique positions within their community, and continued attacks on them really sort of are starting to tear at our social fabric and need to be dealt with. So at the start of the pandemic, threat actors went, oh, it's a pandemic, we're not going to hit hospitals. Turns out they're lying scum. In case you were on the fence about whether they were good people or not, hopefully that one will tip you over the edge. Oh, actually, speaking of being tipped over the edge, this one is particularly unpleasant. Vestamo was, spoiler alert, the biggest private psychotherapy provider in Finland. Attackers broke in, exfiltrated all the patient data, encrypted the patient data, and set about a three-pronged ransomware tactic. 1, pay us to unlock your stuff. 2, pay us and we won't leak your data. 3, contacting the individual patients themselves and saying, for €300, we won't send all of your psychiatrist notes to your family and friends. Now, I don't wish harm on many people, but I hope that the people who are responsible for committing this get paper cuts between their toes and are forced to walk across hot salt. Yes, I have thought about this at length. So, all this new tech that's going into hospitals, what is it? What is it and how does it work? What does it even do? It's got a whole bunch of cool new acronyms, some of which overlap with ours too. I had someone wander in to my office one day, wanted to talk to someone about TCP. Like, oh yeah, I think that's me. Really? You don't look like a TCP guy. I'm like, come on. I know one end of a router from the other if someone shows me the right direction. So it was about 10 minutes into the meeting when they were discussing care plans in aged care facilities that the transitional care program probably wasn't the TCP that I had in mind. So yes, there's a bit going on. HL7, hospital level 7 is, the clue's in the name and where it sits in the OSI layer. So it was sort of invented in Boston in the 80s, which is a bit of a hotbed of medical innovation. And it's to allow all these different hospital systems to interconnect with each other. Yeah, as you can see, that's a sample of a HL7 message. It is plain text over the wire. So if you're doing any packet captures, they've got PHI in them. Think of it as the circulatory system of your hospital. It talks to all the different systems, and much like blood flowing around your body. If it gets a blockage, your hospital has a blockage. You get patients backed up, you don't know who's in the right bed, things like that. So it's vitally important to keep it functioning. EMRs. Now, EMRs get a bit of a bad rap with clinicians for a couple of reasons. Some states in Australia have like a single system to one to rule them all. Some states let each hospital do their own individual thing. It's a massive shift in sort of like clinical practice, and it's really impactful to the people doing it. And quite often it means you get a bit of clinician resistance. Here's the thing though. Putting in an EMR is like putting in a Japanese toilet. Because the first time you encounter one, it's confronting. There's all these buttons everywhere. I don't understand the user interface. I've got crap to do. I will stick with my paper-based system, thank you very much. And then after you've had it for a year, you wonder how you ever got by without it. The reason we put EMRs in, I never got too worried about my doctors leaving post-it notes with their passwords on their monitors. Like, I did encounter one. Me and my team spent 4 hours staring at it like we were in Bletchley Park trying to crack the Enigma code. We weren't even sure what way was up. Pro tip for any red teamers, if you find yourself doing a hospital engagement, bring a pharmacist along so they can translate for you. PACS was the first system to get digitised and modernised. Anything that takes a photo of you, basically, sort of X-rays, CT scans, MRIs, runs on a protocol called DICOM, so diagnostic comms, which is essentially a big, giant repository of all of your X-rays. Great dedupe storage. If you've got block-level dedupe, most X-rays are about 95% black, so you can fit an amazing amount of X-rays into a really, really small, comparatively, storage array. So they're great. Really good for sort of sharing as well, if you travel between different care providers. Many of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s would have had the experience of carting your X-rays around from one specialist to another. That doesn't happen anymore because they just log into the PACS and get it done that way. Real-time location services. So think of this as super accurate Wi-Fi. It stops, sort of people losing things and keeping track of them. Think the precursor to, air tags, but highly accurate, down to like sort of sub 10 centimetre range sort of thing. They're really useful when you pair them with door exciters as well, so you can have automatic doors attached to the RTLS system. We had a high dependency aged psychiatric unit at one hospital that I used to work at, and they had a gentleman there who, for most of the time, had a pretty idyllic existence. He sort of wandered around doing his thing and sort of having a great time. But occasionally he, sort of wander out the door, realise he was in a hospital and have a bit of a freak out and need to be sort of talked down. So you'd spot people running out and go, what's out there? So what we ended up doing is we popped an RTLS tag in his walking stick and set it so that whenever he approached that door wouldn't open. Which is an awesome outcome because, he gets to continue to live his idyllic existence and, he goes through a lot less stress. Any of you that have had a family member go through sort of like dementia, it's fairly heartbreaking. So you like to make life as easy as possible. On the opposite end of the age spectrum, this is a photo of my niece. She is 2 days old in this photo. And she, on her wrist, foot, has a little tag. And what happens is when baby is born in hospital, baby gets a tag, which is paired with the mother tag. If someone tries to take the baby to the door of the maternity ward without the matching mother tag being present, the door doesn't open. There's no alarm, there's no, sort of like sirens go off, it's just the door just simply doesn't open. It's really effective, given that giving the infant to the wrong parent is one of those sentinel events we talked about. It's an excellent application of the technology, making life easier. She's still retained her love of wristbands. This is her meeting the Harlem Globetrotters. Biomedical devices. So biomedical devices, they're IoT devices, basically. They're IoT devices, but with a soft, squishy interface that plugs into a human. They are as secure as IoT devices. Yeah. So a wireless drug infusion pump is just like any other IoT device. It needs to be protected, it needs to be patched, or it needs to be secured, or someone else is going to run it for you. And which is not an ideal outcome when you've got someone plugged into a cardiac defibrillator. So some of the challenges that come with running hospitals. There are a few. There are a few. So the public sector itself. So the public sector is a bit of a challenge because you can't just like sell more widgets and make more money to fund what you do. You've got a very limited amount of money, a small bucket from which to get stuff done. So you're competing with patient outcomes for the things that you want to do. I did wander in and put a proposal in to install a $300,000, I don't know, whatever it is vendors sell for $300,000 these days. And the head of acute rehab said, that's great for $300,000. I'm sure that's very important. Or I can do 10 knee replacements at $30,000 each, get 10 people off the waiting list, and there'll be 10 people that actually play with their grandkids in the backyard. All right, fair enough. You got me. That is a very good use of the money as well. I have a proposal though. Why don't hospitals go and sell the records on the dark web themselves? I mean, they're going to get stolen anyway. Hospital funding's a challenge. It'll put the scumbags out of business. And Grad Day gets a knee replacement. I don't see a problem here. Work like a charm. Threat modelling in hospitals is kind of a fun one. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on at hospitals. There's a lot of moving parts, and they're a little bit weird. No two hospitals are ever the same. The reason for that is no two populations that hospitals serve are ever the same. So it means they have different services, they have different cultures, which means they need different solutions. If the tech's different in your hospital, the defence is going to be different as well. This is from a hospital in Palmerston, near Darwin. Anyone from Darwin in the room? Give us a cheer. No, you're all at the pub. Sweet. So the reason that hospitals get targeted traditionally is because they get paid, which is infuriating. Cyber insurance kind of has a lot to answer for here, if I'm being brutally honest. As mentioned before, attackers lied about targeting health. Healthcare is the second biggest target worldwide, right behind financial services. If you are considering paying the ransom, here's a handy sort of flow chart. Don't. Please, for the love of God, don't pay the ransom. One, it's like voting, it only encourages the bastards. Two, you've got a data integrity problem. There's no guarantee that the data you get back is the same data you put in. And if you get a bit flipped and you said that someone is A+ blood type and you give them B- instead because the medical record was wrong, you're going to have a sentinel event. But the main reason, if you're in the public sector, I don't know how many of you have dealt with government procurement before. They're not super jazzed about you taking government funds and buying Bitcoin off the dark web. It's a very, very brief chat with procurement. So what is it you're trying to buy? Bitcoin. Who are you going to give it to? Criminals. Nah. Governments are not very keen at all on giving taxpayer money directly to criminals. They usually make you build a casino first. Unpatchable equipment. So, an MRI costs $3 million to install. Runs Windows 7. It comes with a very, very specific list of software it can run and a specific patch level it can run at. And you have to abide by that because you don't want to break the $3 million to install MRI. This is a picture of WannaCry running on a medical contrast injector. I'm pretty sure that's not on the software list as well. People go, oh, just isolate it, just isolate it. It needs to talk to the PAS. It needs to talk to the PAC system. It needs to talk to a whole bunch of systems. That's how these things get on the network in the first place. We all know the CIA triangle: confidentiality, integrity, availability. So confidentiality is the one that tends to get a lot of the focus amongst InfoSec types. So a loss of confidentiality won't kill you. A loss of availability might. A loss of data integrity might kill you. A loss of confidentiality won't. That's why hospitals aren't as worried about data loss as they are about data destruction. They're both annoying, but only one of them has the potential to kill you. It's not that hospitals don't care, They care about different things. I don't have time. Oh, getting up, I do bang on. All right, so a few things that have worked in terms of helping to secure our hospitals. Education has always sort of been the silver bullet with this. Security awareness training is generally always effective. Clinical staff that you have don't use computers for a living. They're not as familiar, as those of us who, push a mouse around, for a wage, for a living are. But what they are generally is pretty cluey, most cardiac surgeons in my experience. They've got a bit going on up top. So you get really, really good bang for your buck when it comes to training time. If you get 10 minutes of the time, they're pretty quick on the uptake. So that's a handy one. Hospitals have some of the best incident response you'll see outside of the armed forces, basically. They're really, really good in emergencies. There's even a department called that. They're really, really good at it. Integrate with their existing IR processes, because they've got some exceptional processes for you to follow. Makes life so much easier. Rather than reinvent the wheel, just use theirs, because theirs is better and has been battle tested. These things are designed to run through fire, flood, war, the whole shooting match. Pandemic, everyone, there was no, a pandemic, what do we do in a hospital? Let's break out the pandemic plan. We've trained for this. Network segmentation has always been a goal. There's always the talk of, we used to have castle and moat networks. The problem is that most healthcare networks have been all moat and no castle. Some vendors want us to run zero trust networks. The problem is we're out here running zero clue networks. We don't really know what we've got necessarily. So there's no reason for your finance department to be able to ping a drug infusion pump. And by the same token, those workstations that your MRI technicians are using should not be running Outlook and should not be used to check their email on it. BIA studies. Now, so a business impact analysis is normally in a lot of places boring as hell. But in hospitals, they're actually kind of fun because there's a lot of stuff going on and working out how it all sticks together. Who wants to win another sticker? There we go. All right, here we go. Do you know what that is? No. What generates something? Yeah. What type of water pump? Oh, close. Well. Anyone? There we go. It is an industrial chiller. And it is critical to hospital operation. And the reason for that is that thing is key in sterilising instruments. If that thing stops working, you can no longer sterilise instruments in your hospital. If you can't sterilise instruments in your hospital, you can't do much. So yeah, that thing on the roof that no one knew about, turns out, is completely critical. Business impact analysis are absolutely cool in hospitals. I do recommend them. Give you time. Oh. It's all right, we're nearly done. And the last one is teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work. So there's a lot of commonality amongst hospitals. We've all largely got the same tech, we've all largely got the same problems, we've all largely got similar threat models. Sharing information between us makes everyone safer. The real superpower was the friends we made along the way. Join your local ISAC. The Health ISAC group is really good, filled with lots of useful information. Fairly US-centric, but that's all right. There's still good people still good people regardless. Now, documentation. So there's a talk on it before that I really, really liked, but it's very important to restate. Documentation is like sex. When it's good, it's fantastic. When it's bad, still better than not having any. You may think you're good at documentation. I think everyone starts their career thinking they're good at documentation. Yeah, I'm pretty good at this documentation thing. And then someone shows you what good documentation is, and that stays with you for the rest of your life. And you just, think back to that wistful time when someone showed you good documentation. It might be, you might get wistful and think about it as you light some candles and run a bath and log into Confluence on your iPad. Or hey, maybe you're one of these old school types who likes, sort of pen and paper. Maybe that's your thing. Hey, not my scene, but whatever floats your boat. I'm not. If you really like the feel of a ballpoint pen on paper, that's fine. I'm not here to ink shame. Yes, I finished on a dad joke. Yes, it is beer o'clock. Thank you all very much for your attention and kind attention. I am clearly out of words and my brain has ceased to function. Thank you all.
You timed it perfectly then.